Oh, okay. Well, you can do it again if you want.
No, it wasn't a good joke.
No.
All right, folks, for those who missed it, presenting the Long Island joke.
See, that made it funnier.
Liz, what did you do this weekend?
I went to the Long Island Retro Game Festival or whatever the fuck it's called, where I saw Frank, and he
That's
told
true.
me about a knitting game.
Brandon, did you have any questions about that?
None. I have no comments. No comments about Long Island.
That was not the joke. That is the new joke.
The new joke.
Oh, Lord. It's body time. This is episode 301 of Insert Credit, where since 2012 we've been delivering snappy answers from video game experts on the topics of the day to the tune of a horrible buzzer. I'm Alex Jaffe, and in Earthbound I input my favorite thing as lists.
Ooh, my name is Frank Zafaldi, and in Earthbound, I input my favorite thing. It's kind of a different thing every time.
Yeah, you just have to pick one.
Right, I know. I understand the point of a prompt, Jaffe, but typically I just kind of roll through the pre-existing ones because I'm one who hits random like 3 times on the character creator and goes good enough and presses start. So my equivalent of that in Earthbound is hitting select or whatever it is and going, I don't know, that one, pizza, sure.
Well, I'm Brandon Sheffield, and I've never played Earthbound still.
But if you were to play Earthbound and the game prompted you to put in your favorite thing in a limited menu of, I think, 6 characters or less, what would it be?
I mean, I think I need some context for what that even, like...
Well,
You're
you
not
don't know
given
when you
that
start the
context
game.
when you start
you're not
the game.
given. So do you want to be a new player or a veteran player in the scenario?
All right, I'd say dogs.
Okay,
That's
great.
good. Absolutely perfect.
That means that later on when you sorry to interrupt whoever that was, I don't know.
We'll find out. Stay tuned.
To give context, Brandon, as your psychic powers progress and you have a psychic attack, you can now attack later in the game with psi dogs. So it's a really excellent choice.
I see. Yeah.
Also, by the way, my name is Liz Ryerson. I've been on this podcast a few times before.
That's correct.
I think if you enter your favorite food as something your mom will say, like, next time you want to have some blank.
Oh, right.
So I did... I'm sorry to say, I think the last time I played it, I did enter poop because I thought it was funny.
Nice.
And like, you know, sometimes when you do stuff like that, you forget about it, and then you're reminded halfway through the game, and it's like, what? Why are they saying that? Oh, right. And it's pretty funny, so.
Pretty good.
That's good news.
I think I'll take it.
Scatological humor remains amusing even past the age of 5. I can confirm.
I was going to write an episode this week, but one of our listeners reminded me that 100 episodes ago, I promised that starting with episode 301, this entire show would only be recycled questions.
But that can't be real. That's not going to really happen.
This week, I am kind of trying that, more or less. I've modified a few of them. This is our revisitation episode, and we'll figure out if this is how the show goes on autopilot from here on out.
No, it's not, is what I'm telling you right now.
It's diminishing returns from here on out.
It's not going to...
You witnessed the jump the shark moment.
Yeah.
We can do it this time, but that was a funny joke. Ooh, let's do it one time.
For our first topic, I think we can combine a couple recent events into a single question for us to discuss at the top of the show. Right now, in August of 2023, what the hell is wrong with game journalism?
That's a tough one.
There's a lot that's been happening lately.
Oh boy, I have not been paying attention, so this is going to be interesting. Okay.
I mean, basically, what's wrong with it is that because there's been no good money in doing it right for a long time, doing it badly or poorly is kind of all that's left in many cases. You know, with Patricia Hernandez being fired from Kotaku, she did an interview about it and was talking about how execs basically wouldn't let you write about certain things, and everyone is being channeled into just a few topics about just a few games, and ultimately guides and stuff are what actually make money, and they're trying to make AI be a thing with some of these. And so I think really what's wrong with game journalism right now is that it's like not really a viable job anymore for most people, and the very few people that are still able to do it are doing it under weird controls and under the thumb of weirdos, and sometimes they are encouraged to do things that are completely sensationalist and not journalism, and I wrote a little article about that, which you can read on Insert Credit.
Read?
Yeah, I know.
Which leads them to be harassed by people for, like... I actually, like, looked this up at some point because I was wondering why so many people were obsessed with Kotaku, like, where this, like, originally came from. And, like, most of the criticisms I saw were just people being like, oh, it's clickbait. And it's like, okay, but that's the economy of everything. So why is Kotaku? And I don't know the answer, but, like... It's so frustrating because it's not just like, you know, you're working at the whims of whoever is in charge who, you know, is trying to maximize profit and minimize quality. It's also just like, I feel like so much of it has been thrown out into like the influencer kind of landscape. Like,
yeah.
There's just so much misinformation out there. And I think that goes in general with like just the entire landscape of games. But like the median like information, like gamer opinion is still like what determines how people react to and respond to things. And like a lot of YouTube influencers, etc., are the ones who perpetuate that. And like there might be good ones. There's probably more better ones now than there were, you know, like 7 or 8 years ago, but they're still reacting to like the median opinion, which is like this kind of like consumer, like it tends to blame developers for things that go wrong. They don't tend to be interested in looking at like material conditions of how games are made or the leadership or like why things are the way that they are. They just tend to be like an angry reaction. And ironically, it's the same clickbait problem that people complain about with Kotaku, but because there's like a face there that somebody has invested in, it's just like, I guess they're blind to seeing that or something. But like, I don't know. I just feel like the YouTube influencer economy has like taken over so much of the space, like especially game criticism. Like it's happening now for game journalism, but like game criticism like tended to fall apart like blogs. People don't really read them as much as they used to or anything like that. So like it just means that anybody who's getting into games, like their perception of what the landscape is based off of like whatever content creator ecosystem that they bought into, which may or may not be completely right or completely wrong. And maybe the person presents whatever they're saying as like objective facts or reality. So you have a bunch of people with different perceptions of reality of like what the space is, all connecting to each other. And because like GameSphere is so like privatized, it's so like it's just whoever is successful enough is right, basically. That's like the attitude. So that gets to define and like set the terms, and I think that's really, really bad.
To the Kotaku thing, that really kicked off in 2014. It was very Gamergate reaction, and
I disagree. There was a proto version of it before that was very Kotaku focused.
I do remember it.
I remember people being obsessed with Tim's article about living in Japan. Like I remember seeing the internet, and that was like 2010 or something.
But I mean, there was a proto version of it, but that was when it really like kicked off and became pervasive, I would say, much more so. And I think that a lot of the kind of reaction video stuff parrots similar talking points to what was going on back then, because it's a very adversarial relationship between the idea of the consumer and the idea of the people making these games that theoretically only care about money or whatever. It's very unfortunate, and it's hard to combat because, you know, they're still talking about like the game journalism establishment or media establishment, and that barely exists anymore. Like
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think we're low on time, but like I want to add on to that, and also what Liz was saying about like, you know, influencers kind of taking over that space. And I think this goes way beyond games. I think that
absolutely
the current trend is that we no longer trust experts. We trust individuals. And I just think that, you know, all journalism and criticism is subject to that, and games aren't as special as we think they are.
Yeah, and a rambling, just asking questions YouTube video is easier for people to agree with because it doesn't make any points. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do any research. it just floats out these frustrations or these...
It tells you what you want to hear, basically. It's all like...
it tells you, here's the trouble, and it's not your fault. It's these other people's fault. And I don't know what the solution is, but there's definitely a problem, and here are the people that are causing it. I guess that's where the point comes in, is it makes kind of like a declarative statement about who's in the wrong, but without thinking about it at all.
But before we finish, I just want to say, I do think, like, I think about like YouTube in 2016 and how it was like a very like right-wing dominated space, and that's why people like ContraPoints ended up joining. Like, I talked to her on a podcast like years ago, probably my most high profile guest, and she basically said like I got into YouTube because there was so much like right-wing misinformation on the space, and like that's also, you know, you can debate whether it was worthwhile for her to like debate right-wing YouTubers or like platform them or whatever, but like that was kind of the idea behind it. So maybe that needs to happen more with people who actually have experience with game development or like who have done journalism and like are interested in those things. But I don't know, it's just such a difficult thing to do, and there have been more people who have done it, but like the median opinion is still like, you know, the
yeah. And the problem is the people who could do a good job of this do not have the time to do so.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sadness.
Here's our next topic. Back in April of 2020, I asked about the long-term effects of the COVID outbreak on video games. We had barely any idea what that would entail at the time. But now looking back from the world that we've been in, let me retake that sentence. All right.
No, don't. No, keep it.
Keep it in.
Frank, I know you're personally invested in making me sound like a rambling fool. I lost my train of thought there. I tried to go off script and face planted. Anyway, what happened with COVID? And we can start with brain fog of our podcast hosts.
Yeah, well, a lot of things happened with COVID. A lot of games got delayed, and we're still feeling the ramifications of that for sure. Also, the kind of work from home thing has always been a little more present in games than it was in other fields, but definitely that's like a pretty dominant thing, and anybody who is saying, we want you to come work in an office is a lot less likely to get applicants at this point because nobody wants to do it anymore. It's never been that. I mean, it's good for certain parts of game development, but you can replicate a lot of it with Zoom. But I actually don't know, and I think this is part of where we got a lot of delays. I don't know how well that scales beyond like a team of my size. A team of 15 people can do that, but a team of 300, they have to break into a bunch of little groups, and then the producers are reporting back to the directors and all this stuff, and it gets a little muddled and murky there. But yeah, that's another big aspect. Another thing is there was a huge surge of interest in buying games at the start in 2020. And a lot of companies were banking on that trend continuing, and it did not. Like, people still buy games, obviously, but the massive hits that you could have in 2020 are not possible in the same way for like a single player stay at home kind of a video game.
Animal Crossing type stuff.
Animal Crossing, Doom, that period was kind of a blip because it took like Untitled Goose Game was before that, but it took games of that ilk kind of with it, Short Hike and stuff, which was great, but that bubble has kind of burst and it's kind of back to normal, which isn't a problem, but companies definitely did take they were like hedging their bets that maybe this is going to keep going.
I have a suspicion, and I remember during COVID that that video games were kind of on the up revenue wise.
Yeah,
and also very specifically that like retro games were on the up revenue wise. I suspect that that's coming from a place of seeking comfort in an uncertain time.
Mm-hmm.
So I do wonder if there's sort of a mini retro bubble that we maybe don't realize has popped yet.
I think so, especially when you look at so I continue to purchase video games.
For some reason.
Oh, I was thinking new games.
Yeah, I know. I know you're thinking about new retro, but I think this is also kind of not a symptom, but an example of it. Because all the game prices just shot right up.
Yeah,
in 2020.
It's insane. Some of them never really went down, and some of them did.
Some of them never went down, and others went like way back down because everybody bought them at that time, but like records just have gone through the roof, and reselling vinyl records is an actual thing that you can do. You buy the limited ones and then you flip them for $10 more or whatever. It's very ridiculous.
The whole like limited release vinyl. I'll wait for you to finish talking.
It's okay. About that. But I do think that it is indicative of what you say, Frank, that people were seeking comfort and they're wanting things that are familiar to them to ground themselves in this unfamiliar space. And I think some new retro games did come along with that. But now I think you have to be more intelligent about it and I think TMNT is doing a great job with their revival right now with the new game and then the collection were both very well received, and like the new beat 'em up from Tribute. That game was just, I wonder if something like that will help people realize, this is what I've been saying along, you don't need to make the game that people remember, you need to make the game that people think they remember. You need to make the feeling that they thought they had at that time, and that's what that new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game does. Like, it totally gives you that feeling of being a kid in a pizza shop. All the cute little animations on the side and stuff. So yeah, I think there is that, but I also do think it has kind of burst in a lot of newer retro games I've seen in the last few months from indie devs have not really done as much.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think what both you and Frank said about there being like a mini bubble, especially for certain types of games, I think is probably true. Especially like games that are prioritize a certain kind of comfort. Yeah. We'll just say, because I don't want to say the actual word that a lot of these kinds of games are called, but I think it's also like there's a certain kind of oversaturation in like things that are very focused in specific genres, and after a while the genre becomes oversaturated. But one thing that you both didn't mention is that the music industry was really trying to push like concerts in like Fortnite and and like Minecraft and stuff, but especially Fortnite. And there was like floated for a while like this idea like that this might be the future, and then that didn't end up coming to pass at all. So,
but those did work. Those concerts worked quite well, and 100 gex in Minecraft is like, wow.
Yeah. I think that was more organic than the Fortnite ones where they gave artists like Ariana Grande or Travis Scott,
stage.
Or they gave them they gave them tons of money. I think there are a lot of things that were like floated over the pandemic that never ended up happening. I definitely think there are certain markets that had a surge and that are coming back down. Stuff with retro games is like retro games did get really expensive. They have been getting steadily more expensive, like older retro games. Okay. But anyway, the point is that some of the prices have not gone down, though. And like, I do think physical media as like a boutique object is probably here to stay, which is so frustrating when it comes to like the vinyl market and the resale value for like limited release stuff. But that's a whole other
+1 this for a second, because I was in a used record store called Rasputin out in Berkeley, and
I've been there. Yeah,
I had the fortune/misfortune to be browsing near some young people.
Oh no.
And they were talking about how they love analog media because it can mess with you. Like, for example, you can't play cassettes in older cars because they don't have Bluetooth. Because the way that you play cassettes, of course, is you get some kind of Bluetooth attachment cassette player and put it in your car. They didn't conceive that, cars used to have cassette players inside of them. That's what an old car is. And another guy being like, yeah, I just love the feeling of going up to my vinyl player and blah, blah, blah. Like,
people calling it a vinyl player.
Calling it vinyl players.
It's not what it's called. Vinyl's the material.
Everybody in there is like, oh, I love vinyls. I can't wait to get some more vinyls. And I heard also I heard a lot of people talking during this excursion, because unfortunately I forgot my headphones. And someone was talking about how Mariah Carey is super underrated, as though she's this artist. I love Mariah Carey, but she's not quite rated.
Underrated.
People know who she is. She was being talked about as though she was an underground musician that wasn't getting enough play. It was just a What a time. What a time. But maybe that's something that also came out of the pandemic.
Well, yeah, Rasputin is a particularly weird store, and it's right on the campus of Berkeley, so I feel like it attracts some of that.
So there's going to be young people.
I had a roommate who used to work there, actually, so I heard a lot of stories.
I worked at the one in Newark, so...
I want to imagine there's a guy out there who refers to their collection of Funko Pops as their vinyls.
They should. They should.
Yeah, that's the new thing to do.
Yeah. Here's my next question. This question was submitted by previous episode winner Liz Ryerson, who asked, what's the hot new genre of video game in the year 2050?
Oh, wow.
Wow. I don't know who came up with that, but that's not a very good question.
Okay, 2050.
2050.
It'll be a simulation of a society in which you socialize with other people in physical spaces.
Yeah, it's going to be meta.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to see the bottom. You're going to be able to see your legs. You're going to see the bottom of your feet.
Yeah. Actually, I wasn't going that angle, but that's fair. Actually, that's a fair little call out. But
I thought that was the joke you were making.
No, it wasn't. No. I don't know. Like I think we are getting more isolated, and I can see like social games, even if they're fake social, being the taste of people escaping to their air-conditioned homes because they can't go outside anymore.
But is it new? I'm trying to think.
In 2050?
I feel like so there's tends to be like a 20 and 30 year cycle, because I'm trying to think back to what was popular like 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was like FPS games, I guess.
Yeah, and that's popular again now. Boomer shooters are back.
So I could imagine that it would be like whatever like the most current form of like indie game, something that it hasn't had a nostalgia cycle yet. Like it could be that combined with feeling socially isolated.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it could be games like Unpacking or Ooblets or something. Like maybe that's what will get a revival.
Yeah, but like some weird combo like version of it, like maybe where it combines it with some other genre that's like cool right now, or I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, maybe we'll get something that would be interesting would be if those games that are popular in Europe but never make it over here. Like if we had a farming sim MMO and everybody is working on the farm and doing their work on the farm and talking to each other.
SimCommune.
SimCommune, yeah.
Maybe like a Zelda game, but with that, with like mechanics that have nothing to do with like unpacking mechanics and farm sim mechanics in it or something, where it's like half a Zelda or Metroidvania type game and then half that or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like what's going to be...
We can't predict 5 years from now. So what are you thinking about?
From now, but I'm trying to think about like will people be like I remember Fortnite 1.0 or whatever. Are we going to want to have
Fortnite Classic,
the old Fortnite back, like when there's WoW Classic or whatever? Yeah, I feel like something like that could be the deal, or maybe we'll get into. I feel like there's a future in which people get excited about pirate knockoff versions of famous games.
That's true.
Potentially in the future, where it's like I don't want to play Fortnite. I want to play Five Night, which is some AI clone that got put together and is really weird and stilted, and maybe people will be really interested in that at some point.
Like, I think when I originally posed that question, I imagined like, and maybe this is too like retro futurist of me, but like the idea of just something having really grotesque like aesthetics, like a Cruelty Squad type thing, except whatever the 20 or 30 year later version of that is. It's something that feels like totally unparsable to us now, but is like some combination of that and like current hip games or whatever.
Yeah, like a skill shooter farming sim or something.
Yeah.
I'd probably check it out.
All right. Here's another question from Liz Ryerson, who asked, what's your favorite ROM hack?
I have a definitive answer to this now.
I was hoping you would.
And it's B3313 or whatever it's fucking called. The Yume Nikki style Mario 64 ROM hack.
Oh, I know this one, yes.
Yeah, because it's I mean, like, some of the concept of it is like about that meme about like every copy of Mario 64 being personalized, or like heavy like iceberg meme type references to like beta versions of the game. And I don't care about any of that stuff. But the experience of it is definitely quite, like, I've played a little bit of it and I watched a friend play it. It's quite like surreal, and it does feel a little bit like Yume Nikki-esque, which I really like Yume Nikki, and I like the idea of it being transported into a game with a little more like, Mario type mechanics. So that's what I would. Yeah, it's B3313, and I think the official like 1.0 version is coming out at some point soon, or has. I don't know.
I have a cheat answer. The current English patch for Mother 3. I don't know that it's not really a cheat, because it's like the amount of ROM hacking that had to happen to make everything work was pretty incredible. That game is a mess under the hood. Like, it has, like 12 different systems for displaying text, instead of the one it's supposed to have. And if you followed along with Tomato's blog, it was quite a journey to make it work, and the end result feels like a commercial product.
When was the latest one released?
I feel like they did a bug fix very, very posthumously. Like, the biggest bug was that they couldn't figure out, like, after you put in your name and your favorite thing and press start, the performance like dropped a lot as the colors like faded out. You could hear the audio popping and stuff. That was like the one major bug, and then years later they fixed it, so it's now just kind of a perfect game.
Yeah, I see they released 1.3 in 2021, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. They added features to the game that are, excuse me, let's do that again. I hit my tile and found my phone.
No, keep it in.
Keep it in. I don't care. What was I going to say? They added features to the game that were like in the ROM but disabled, so you can like kind of access things like debug rooms and stuff like that, like in game. There was like a feature, I think, that like kept a journal of your progress or something like that, and it's in there and translated. It's a really, really substantial and polished and like ready to publish ROM hack, because the idea was they were making something that they hoped Nintendo would just put on a cart, so that's my answer.
My answer is kind of a cheat as well, because I was thinking the exact same thing as Frank. Games like Private Eye Doll and Fushigi no Yume no Alice for PC Engine. These games got translations in the last year that significant work had to be done to get the fonts working, and like in Fushigi no Yume no Alice, you have to translate her little kya attack into a eek instead. So they just made new graphics for it. I like that stuff. I think that's cool. I think there are a lot of really good, interesting ROM hacks out there, but I'm not really as aware of them. What I would like to happen is for someone to find a way to port the Sonic Triple Trouble Genesis, which was a remake of Sonic Triple Trouble for the Game Gear on PC. I want someone to now downport that to the Genesis.
Oh, just play the version they made, man. What do you get out of it being on a Genesis?
It's a different Sonic game.
People are always doing nonsense stuff like this, so like, why not do this? Why wouldn't someone do that?
If someone wants to do nonsense, sure, instead of like something real.
And people do want to do nonsense, and I
they
applaud
do.
it.
It's true. It's true.
I want people to do that nonsense.
People love to do nonsense.
Especially when their favorite blue hedgehog is involved. People do all kinds of nonsense for that guy.
There's a lot of Sonic nonsense, that's true. I want to throw in before we run out of time that...
I wanted to throw.
You know what? We're going to give Liz time too, because this is Liz's question. But I'm going to go first because I interrupted first.
That's the rule.
So I have watched ROM hacking evolve from ROM hacking to reverse engineering. All of the really intense ROM hacks, like there's a version of Star Fox that like just improves performance significantly and just runs on stock hardware, stuff like that. Like that all comes from actually reverse engineering and building like a build environment for the game as if you were just, straight up making that game. And that's been a really cool way that I've seen this evolve. I mean, I have some personal experience with that with the Phantasy Star retranslation that I worked on. I mean, that's, his GitHub for that, Maxim's GitHub, it's just a GitHub for building and making Phantasy Star, like you can do anything to it. And it's been really cool to see things evolve in that way as opposed to just sort of poking and prodding at the existing ROM and changing things and hoping it doesn't break.
Yeah, there was that Mortal Kombat remake on the Genesis, which tried to make it as close as possible to the arcade version.
Yeah.
And I like that kind of stuff. Liz, you had one more?
Oh, yeah. No, I totally agree with Frank. Like, ROM hacking is becoming more like game development. I mean, it's becoming more like modding was, you know, or modding still is, but like modding is something that is like officially supported in some way, and ROM hacking is not. But another one I wanted to throw in that I played last year is called Peach's Adventure. It's a Super Mario World ROM hack, and you play as Peach, and she is gigantic. She has the most bizarre proportions, but it's actually a lot of fun. It's very cute, and it's not too difficult, which is my main problem with like Super Mario World ROM hacks. It's very approachable. So
yeah, people love to make these games harder
It's the problem that is like existed since the beginning of every modding scene, and ROM hacking is making things too hard.
I was going to ask, like, Doom is probably like that, right?
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Freaking slaughter maps. I mean, I could go on about that. But
I do want to play myhouse.wad at some point.
I just watched
My House, but I also want to recommend for the 100th time alt.wad. I wrote a whole article about it for Vice like 5 years ago. But yeah, My House is also great.
Here is my next question.
Okay.
Thanks. In previous episodes, I've asked which game has the best title and which game studio has the most accurate name. This week I'm combining the two to ask which video game has the most accurate title.
Well, it's not Watch Dogs.
No.
I'll tell you that.
No.
It isn't.
I'm going to have to look through my Steam library for this.
I believe that Atari is selling a current game called like Run and Jump.
Yeah, that's pretty true. I was going to throw out something like Dino Crisis.
Well, I don't think that's accurate because you're not running and jumping as you play the game. You're pressing keys to run and jump.
It's also called Mr. Run and Jump, which, I mean...
Yeah, and you might not be a Mister. You might not even be running it on a Mister.
Well, it's a 2600 ROM, so I could play it on a Mister.
You could.
Virtua Quest is pretty accurate because you are going on a quest in a virtual world using Virtua characters.
I think it would be a little more accurate if it was called Virtual Quest.
Maybe.
There's a game called You Have to Win the Game, and I'm pretty sure you have to win the game to beat it. So.
You have to, or what, though?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay,
Fine.
I'm going to name several NES
Stephen's
games.
Sausage Roll. You just roll sausages.
That's a good one.
Is that more accurate than soccer, mahjong, golf?
No,
right.
It's not.
That's true.
No, that's hard to beat.
Yeah.
Those are probably the ones, I guess. But it would be more accurate if it were like video soccer. Or
they got that on the Atari.
Yeah, that exists.
Yeah, I'm adding to it because technically it's not soccer.
Yeah, Tim Rogers' Video Ball might be one of the most accurate video game names of all time.
But he didn't make it by himself.
Yeah, but it's not called Tim Rogers' Video Ball. I'm just referring to it as such.
Right, okay.
To kind of create that brand identity with our own show.
Michael Kerwin's Video Ball.
Michael Kerwin's Truck Hack, yes.
Yeah, I don't know if we can beat virtual soccer or virtual pinball.
I don't think we should even try to beat it.
Yeah.
I think the least accurate virtual pinball name is David's Midnight Magic. Like, I don't know who that guy is, and he's not in the game, and I'm not playing this at midnight, and it's not Magic.
I'm not feeling the magic.
No.
Necronomicon pinball is also pretty inaccurate.
Well, at least says pinball in it, so it's more accurate than David's Midnight Magic.
It's true. It's a good point.
I think that's it.
We did
So our answer is soccer. I think.
Montezuma's Revenge, very inaccurate. I wasn't sick at all playing it. It felt great.
What about Tetris?
I mean, it is incredibly accurate because it's the name of itself.
That's what it is.
Okay, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah?
I mean, you can't disagree that he's a hedgehog and his name's Sonic. Because
I don't know. I think it's very easy to dispute the fact based on the evidence in the game that Sonic is a hedgehog. He looks very little like a hedgehog.
In terms of being a name that like abstractly reflects what the game is, I think Doom is a perfect name for what Doom is. But
in the feeling it inspires, yeah, I think so. It's certainly aspirational, but it hits the target.
Yeah.
I would say Mario Brothers is more accurate than Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, because
because that's a value judgment.
Super anything 64, like what does the 64 mean?
Right, that's no good.
It means do the math.
You do steal cars in Grand Theft Auto, So that's...
Not in real life.
That's true.
You also don't play soccer in real life when you're playing soccer. Right?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying virtual soccer is
that's why you're saying virtual. Okay. Yeah, all right.
Or
all
computer soccer or whatever. I mean, that's it.
I don't think we're going to beat that.
That's the winner.
I think that's our winner. I guess we're just going to have to take a break right now, and we'll be right back. Frank, I told my friend Corey to say hi to you at Long Island Comic-Con. He said...
I know Corey.
Yeah.
He's not just your friend.
Yeah, he said you should tell me to go fuck myself, so message received.
I don't think I said that. I don't know what he's talking about.
I'll open up my messages.
Hello.
Frank sends his regards. He actually said something more to the effect of, screw him, but I'm sure he meant well.
That's a little bit different than go fuck yourself.
To whom?
To me.
Oh.
Welcome back to the Insert Credit Show. In 2020, I asked who should get a PlayStation 5 and who should get an Xbox Series X.
Oh, geez. Well,
I feel like my answer at the time was no one, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, it's probably still the case. So I'll have to try to answer this. Who should get a PlayStation 5 if you want to play that FIFA? People who play FIFA are more likely to get a PlayStation 5. I just learned this. They're like 4 times as likely to get a PlayStation 5. But the real answer is, if you think that game subscriptions on console are the thing that you would like, you should probably get an Xbox. If you want to play the Sony games, you should get a PlayStation 5. That's kind of it. If you don't care as much about the Sony games, it makes more sense to get an Xbox because you can get all those games on Game Pass. And
yeah.
I really don't actually like this situation, but twice this week I've been like, oh, I should play that Quake 2. Or along a similar vein, I wanted to play Slayers X, that game that Jay Tholen made, which is like a...
I still want to play that.
Yeah,
God.
Me too. And both of them, I was like, I guess I should go buy them. And then I was looking them up, and both of them are on Game Pass. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just download them. And I feel bad about it, but it is like,
it's very convenient.
I don't have to do any work either. In addition to not giving them money, I don't have to do any work to make it happen. So it's bad, and I'm doing it. So what's that all about?
Yeah, I mean, when other people who have asked me who don't know about game stuff, I mean, I don't have any of the new consoles other than the Switch, but I have said the same thing about getting the Xbox because of Game Pass, because like it is convenient.
You can play all the new Yakuzas on there.
Yeah, get whatever the cheap one is, right? The little white guy, the Series whatever S. Is that it? Yeah, just get one of them and get your Game Pass, and then boom, video game.
Though Starfield is not going to run at a good frame rate. On that Starfield, and friends.
I just got that was a Garfield joke.
Yeah.
Every time.
Starfield.
I had this suspicion that
friends are there.
That Starfield was going to be a disaster or whatever, but maybe I don't care anymore.
I got an RPG. I don't need that.
Yeah. You only need one.
Yeah.
Which one do you have? Do you have Baldur's Gate 3?
Yeah.
I hear that
Wizardry 2.
I hear that it came out on day one completely perfect. That's what I heard.
Yeah, that's just right out the womb. Yeah. Just popped right out.
Who's your Baldur's Gate 3 guy, Frank? Who are you playing as?
I don't know, the vampire dude. I don't know their names. I don't care about them.
No, don't you make a guy?
Captain Vampire.
Oh, as discussed at the beginning of this thing, right?
It's the randomizer.
I just hit random a couple times. But in this case, much more Earthbound. You could choose between characters that already existed and had their own backstories and stuff. So I went for that.
Ah, nice.
I always hit the random button a few times until I get something kind of interesting, and then I mess with their features as much as possible so they don't look like human beings anymore.
Classic.
I try to get out of there as quick as I can with something that I don't mind looking at for the next few hours.
Yeah, like the Inhuman features stuff, I guess, works for something like Saints Row, but I'm not sure that I would want to look at a character with incredibly goofy proportions for like a 20, 30, 40-hour game.
It reminds myself to not take anything too seriously, I think. But also, it's fun for me because my partner likes character creators and things, and is always horrified by my process, and that's fun for me.
Do you think this is symptomatic or a cause of the fact that you never empathize with your player characters?
It is symptomatic. I tried to make cool characters. I tried to make characters that were interesting or had like a unique feature, and I couldn't take it any more seriously than if their nose was 5 feet long. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I have Xbox Game Pass and I don't have an Xbox. If you just have a really nice PC, then you don't need an Xbox.
Yeah, it works on there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess for people who like don't want to spend on it, like that is the answer to have a nicer PC. But if people just want a console, then yeah, I guess the Xbox.
My little prediction, we've talked about like, is there a future in the console industry? My prediction is that either this next console generation or the one after, there won't be a physical Xbox anymore. There will just be Game Pass. Microsoft will run Game Pass on PC.
That's a bold prediction, but I can see it.
And there'll still be a PlayStation 6 and there'll still be another Nintendo console, but I think we're leading toward Microsoft running a service instead of having a console.
But a service on what? Like there's not a box that every living room has that will run console games.
It's true, but there is another thought that I've had is, could they get live, if they didn't call it Xbox, on other platforms?
They could. They've shown a willingness to do the opposite. Like I don't know if it was discussed on this show or not, but they put Antstream on Xbox, and that's actually a big deal. Like Antstream's whatever, but they put a subscription game service on Xbox, and that's really fascinating, and that's new. I suspect that it was done because they're trying to look good when there's an antitrust case going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they did it. They set a precedent. Like there's now a service within their service, and I find that really interesting.
This is a question I've been meaning to ask for a long time, but have been bumping for about a year, so it only feels like a revisitation to me.
Okay.
Big bumping.
Can a video game studio feasibly be run as a co-op?
Oh, goodness.
I mean, yeah.
People keep trying it.
I wish I had my friend on to talk more about this who has more experience doing it. I think it obviously depends on the size, but I mean, co-op mode exists and still seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, I know several people that are in game co-ops, and a lot of them, I think the ones that work you don't hear about so much. You wind up hearing about the ones that fall apart.
I mean, but that's the same of any game company.
Of course. It absolutely does work. You just have to have the right people in place at the start and the right bylaws written up that make sure that if someone goes rogue, that there's a way to deal with that. I do know some unsuccessful co-ops, of course, but I also know some that are doing just fine. And I think the model is good. We don't run a co-op, but we pay everyone the same amount and everyone has a say in things. It's just that I'm the dictator as well. Like everyone has a say, but I make the final decision on everything. But people get more of a say in my company than they do in a lot of other companies, I guess. But it's not a co-op. I think a co-op could work. It's a lot of work to set up.
It's one of those things where, like, if the idea is to grow a company, which is like, supposedly the idea of any company in this economy, like the idea is that you're supposed
These
to grow.
These days, it's all growth.
Then that becomes more difficult, and then it becomes more necessary to put things in place. But it's just difficult because of the nature of our economy makes running a co-op also more difficult, because there's so many structures in place to help certain models of like business ownership. So I don't know. It's a difficult thing, and it's not something that where you can just say, "Oh, we started a co-op and then it's great."
Yeah, people don't know this, but it is really hard to get investment harder to get investment if you're a co-op, because the thing that an investor wants to see is a really clean structure. So like a single member LLC, they're like, perfect. One person is in charge and accountable for everything. But if they start to see a complicated, like we, the developers, already have a board, and now the investors are going to have their own board, and then those boards have to interact, suddenly it gets like, people get cold feet on that. So that's, I don't know, that's something that I think not a lot of people think about, but that's capitalism right now.
So it is feasible, but it's
feasible, but it's harder. And it does do some good things. It offers certain protections for workers and things. I have this little weird feeling, though, that is not going to sit well with all of my left-wing socialist friends, that sometimes when a co-op starts or when a company, I see that they unionize or something, it feels like it happens because there was a seed of distrust within the people working there. Quite often it takes the people who are running it by surprise, and then it winds up being this kind of adversarial thing. And there's just something in there that's a little unfortunate for me, because I wish that I guess what I'm saying is I wish it happened more often from the ground up, where people were like excited to make a co-op rather than it being the result of some negative action.
Well, there's so much negative stuff happening.
Of course.
I think the problem is, and the reason why people do it in the first place, just to go back with basics about unionization, all that stuff, is like you could have a completely great situation at your job and then the company could get bought out, or you could be under different leadership because the person who was a good boss left.
Yeah, left.
And then
you're screwed.
The situations completely change. And whoever it's the classic, like, oh, our TV show was picked up because, we had one executive that really liked us, and then it changed to a different executive and it got canceled. And that happens all the time to, people working at companies. So part of doing it is to safeguard stuff like that from happening and to get more security. But like a lot of the times that those things form is because of adversarial situations.
And that's it's just kind of, it's got a little weird vibe to it. But like you were saying, if for some reason I was going to leave Necrosoft, but Necrosoft was going to keep going, I would want to find a way for every major person involved to have a cut of the business, like for everyone to be able to take it over themselves. And so then I would have to set up before I left, I would have to set up a co-op or a union situation or something like that to make sure that everyone was protected in case of my replacement being an ogre.
All right, good answer. I believe one of our panelists first overheard this question at a conference, but we never addressed it ourselves. How much fun should you put in a game before it starts making money?
Yeah, that was me. I heard that. How much fun do you have to put into the game?
How much fun do you have to...
Where did you overhear this?
I'll just recap this. This was during a GDC China event, and Konami at the time was doing real well with some game about dragons on mobile. I can't remember what it was called, but they had some game on mobile that was doing gangbusters free-to-play style. And the speaker said at one point, you can't only be monetizing people, you have to give them some fun. You have to make some fun in there so that they feel like they want to keep doing this, and then they'll give you money. And so, someone raised their hand and were like, with a notepad out, was like, so how much fun do you have to put into the game in order to monetize it well? The way he said it was almost like, please insert fun units kind of thing. Like, do I need 6 funds or 5 funds? Can I get away with 5?
Because each fun unit costs a Bitcoin or whatever. It's like, how many of those do I have to exchange? Before I make money, right?
And so how I feel about that myself, how much fun do you have to put in, is you got to put a lot in at the front, and then you can kind of taper off for a while as long as that front-loaded fun was fun enough, because then I'll be like, maybe that fun's going to come back. Maybe the fun will return for me. And if it doesn't after, let's say, 2 hours, then I might be finished with it.
But it's too late. They got your money.
It's too late. They got my money. But I don't... In free-to-play, it's a tougher one.
It's called the front-loading fun strategy.
Yeah, FLF we call it. Yeah, you got to put in at least 7 funds for me.
Minimum. There was a time in gaming history where you could get away with 4, but our standards have risen.
They've really risen.
We're at 7.3 now.
Yeah, on the funter scale.
I mean, like, my boring answer here is that fun is a completely arbitrary term. So.
What? Since when?
I need to know fun units, Liz.
Since 2015.
Oh.
So anything before
what
that.
happened in 2015?
Yeah.
It's just stuff.
You got to put fun in. Like, I think that the reason that Frank and I completely beat Fist, Forge, and Shadow Torch is because that first hour was just so tight and solid. Wouldn't you say, Frank?
I like the whole thing. I mean, no,
I liked it. I liked it too, but like,
okay.
But that first hour was so solid that I was like, I got to see the rest of this.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it was it did a pretty fantastic job of hand-holding you through the mechanics and world. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
while simultaneously being like, you've turned on the game and now you're playing the game. It was just
right.
like,
and also like, you know, not just gameplay wise, just like environmentally, you know, like it's like the first environments in that game are really compelling. And yeah.
So your argument is that the total fun is not as important as the placement of the fun.
Yeah, I think so. I think that obviously you want to have a game that's all fun all the way through. But
who has the time?
If you don't have the time,
do you want a game that's all fun all the way through?
I kind of do.
Isn't that just like eating pixie sticks?
But you get like a hangover after that and stuff. I feel like,
yeah.
Well, because Fist Forged in Shadow Torch was fun all the way through, but it wasn't as like slammed with fun as that first hour was necessarily. It was good all the way through, and it had little peaks and valleys and stuff. But that first hour was like, yeah. And to Frank's point, with the environment being interesting, there's a real tendency that we have as game developers to hold back our good stuff for later.
Yeah.
Because we want people to be like excited later, but
no.
Put in the good stuff right away.
No.
Yeah.
No, do level 1 last. That's
yeah.
And that's the Miyamoto way that he said once.
Just like Mr. Mario and his wife say.
Doom also is like, that was the case for Doom episode 1.
I didn't know that, but it makes sense. That's the way to do it. You know what the hotness is. Now put it all at the beginning.
Yeah. I'm a little worried about that because for the onboarding of Demon School, the first couple battles are not going to be as fun as later battles because we have to tell you how to play it. And I don't know how to get around it. So
what if you do one of those unbeatable bosses at the beginning sort of things?
Yeah. I think we're giving people other sorts of fun, but it's something I really have to. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Like what is my version of doing 1-1 last? And I don't know. I don't quite have it yet.
Yeah, for RPGs, that's a tough problem.
It is.
I'll bet it's first boss is my guess.
I was thinking back to like when I was a teen and used to make like Wolfenstein 3D levels, and I was like, well, I'm going to make this set with like, 40 levels or whatever, and was always like excited to make the later maps because I'm like, oh, this is going to get super epic or whatever. But then like the earlier maps I like didn't want to do because I'm like, oh, this is the shittier version of like what they're going to see in the later maps, and it's like that doesn't make sense.
Such a weird compulsion that we have to be like, okay, we're going to make the good stuff, and now we're going to put a less good part of that at the front of the game.
Because they have to work up to it. It's like, why would I think that anyone would want to spend that much time?
Yeah, who wants to do that? Why do we think that? I should do a whole video editorial about how developers are stupid and idiots for not doing Okay, sorry, keep going.
I think it's time to go to our lightning round. This week, we are going to the dirt bag. This is where listeners can submit their own questions by subscribing to patreon.com/insertcredit, where they can get access to this form, monthly bonus episodes, and other cool surprises.
Surprise!
This week, we are answering the very oldest questions still active in our mailbag, which I haven't asked because I felt like it was too laborious for a single segment. But maybe for a lightning round where we don't have to think about it too much, it'll work okay.
So it's like a shorter version of the 2 episodes ago.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this is from Anonymous, who says, write the 10 commandments of video games.
Frank, what was that? What was that with the wizard and stuff? You remember you had that like morning ablutions?
Oh, sure, the beginning of Skull and Crossbones on the NES. So hang on, let's look that up. Maybe a Moby game.
This will knock a few out.
First of all, you have to have at least 3 pixels.
Have at least 3 pixels.
Yeah, you got to see that something's moving around. That's a good point.
That's number 1. Number 2?
Wow. Moby Games does not have screenshots of the NES version. From Frank Cifaldi.
Number 2, the people like sound effects.
The people do like sound effects. I think the people should be capitalized here.
Yeah.
Okay. The people like sound effects.
Okay. I got 5 more. You ready?
Okay.
You must kill at least 15 enemies to move on.
You must kill at least 15 enemies to move on.
Do not waste weapons. Try to touch all booty. Do not touch skulls. Try to hurt the wizard every time you see him.
Yeah, that's
Good stuff.
words to live by.
There needs to be at least 15 different types of keys.
You know, that's a good call.
Okay, but they don't hurt the wizard.
We need 2 more.
We need 2 more.
Never turn your back on black magic.
Yeah.
That's from what's it called? I forget the name. I'll remember it in a second. Anyway, what were you gonna say, Brandon?
Brandon, you should get 1 in because Liz has 5 and Frank has 5.
Do the do.
Do the do. All right. The last and most important commandment.
Tower of Druaga. That's what it
Is
was.
to do the
Draga,
do.
yeah.
I was going to throw in the instructions for Pong.
Yeah, do it.
Avoid missing ball for high score.
I think that's a good one.
I think
a better
that's our 11th. Which means, Frank, you win the episode. Congratulations. You have to do homework for next week.
Wow. All I did was copy stuff off the internet, man.
Yeah, but it was your idea to do that. Actually,
No,
it was
it was Brandon's
idea to do
idea.
that. Brandon, you win this episode.
Spring break. Love it.
Spring break.
Love to win.
Congratulations, everybody.
Did it.
We just recorded an episode. This
Yeah, good
is
for
the
us.
point of the show where, if you'd like, you can recommend things to our audience.
I'll do it.
Either that's stuff you're working on, or stuff you're enjoying, or stuff you're not enjoying but want to inflict on others.
So I watched a movie. I was always skeptical of Scott Adkins for some reason. He's kind of like a B martial arts movie guy who's a
Hates carbohydrates.
he hates his brother Scott Keto is I don't know where I'm going with that joke. Anyway, why would they have different last names? Scott Adkins, I knew him mostly for doing a lot of good interviews with cool B-movie martial artists. Somehow I didn't feel like he could carry a film, and I was convinced by someone to watch the movie Avengement, and now I'm sold and I want to watch additional of his movies. It's a very British, in a good way, story about a guy who is wronged and gets all beat up in prison and then becomes jacked and then goes on a Taken mission. But it's a Taken mission that you see sort of in flashbacks. And it's a well-made dumb action movie in the style of well-made dumb action movies in the 90s, but it doesn't feel old or bad. So I'm going to recommend Avengement, starring Scott Adkins. That's a fun one. The end.
All right. Very quick recommendations. I recently took an airplane, and I thought, what if I watched good movies on an airplane?
Always a good question.
Kind of unusual take, right?
I guess.
So I watched 12 Angry Men and Fargo. Those are good movies. They're still good movies. So I don't know those, but actual recommendation. The folks upstairs from me at Digital Eclipse are done with a product that I think's pretty remarkable called The Making of Karateka.
They spent a long time. That was like so long in the making or in the planning before the making.
Yeah, I mean, this current version of it wasn't a crazy long schedule, but I feel like this is one of several iterations.
It was percolating for a long time.
Well, I mean, it came out the womb perfect, like you said.
Exactly. Exactly.
I haven't worked for the studio for quite a while now, but this is always sort of the direction that I had in mind to at least experiment with, which is just go very, very deep on one subject. And in this case, it is Jordan Mechner's game development career at the start. So it's Karateka, which is a hit game, but it's also a game called Death Bounce, which was his first game that never got published, but was worked on quite a bit. And it is very much an interactive documentary that has games in it, which was something that, I always kind of wanted to see things go toward. I think Atari 50 was a really good version of that, but I like this one because it's even more focused, and Jordan kept all of his material. Like, he rotoscoped those games by photographing like his family.
Yeah.
And he has all of those photos still. This game shows you literally how it was made. He kept a daily journal of making this game in like 1983 or whatever. Like, that daily journal is incorporated into this game. It is an interactive timeline of a person in the early 80s creating video games and the struggles that he went through. And like, they have in the game, in progress builds that like correspond to the journal you're reading. So you get to like play the game as it evolves.
That's so cool.
I
That
think
is very
it's
cool.
really remarkable as a product, and I suspect that it's going to have a really hard time finding an audience. Because it is a very new type of thing that I don't even know if there is an audience for, but I want to find out. So if that sounds appealing to you, that's about to come out. This might be the future of retro stuff. It might be a path that we never walk down again, but it's something worth looking at, I think.
I love it.
Comes out end of the month, I think. The Making of Karateka.
It's a really neat idea, and the thing that worries me a little bit is whether this game lives or dies on whether people are interested in Karateka, which I think is they're not as. But if this were like
Mega Man,
but if it were like this is about game development and Karateka is the subject of it, which is actually what it is,
right? And then it's in the title, which I'm very happy about.
Yeah, I wonder if people are going to be able to make the leap. I hope they can make the leap, because I think the point of it is that it's interesting even if you're not interested in Karateka as a game. It's like the behind the scenes documentary of a movie, but if it's done in a way that's supposed to tell you about making movies, kind of.
And it's a particular time and place too, which I think is useful, because like to a lot of people the 80s didn't exist. Like the idea of like 80s game development is so specific to time and place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it is meant to be part of a series, and I do know what the next one is, and it's pretty cool.
I'm going to cheat a little bit. So I have a few things. One is I watched the movie Peking Opera Blues by Choi Hark, a Hong Kong movie, fairly recently, and it was good, so I recommend that. It's like about some friends taking down the imperialism something. I think it's about Japanese invasion of China or something, but it's like mostly like a comedy action movie. It's very good. The second thing is I was on a podcast of my friends called To the White Sea about the Coen brothers, the films of the Coen brothers. I was on a recent episode, but I just recommend the podcast in general called To the White Sea. They're reading through an old script that was never of a movie by the Coen brothers that was never made called To the White Sea.
That's cool.
A little bit each episode, and then the structure is like based on that. So we talked about a lot of scenes from various movies. And the last thing is I'm like working on music actively, and I'm trying to like do a better job of like trying to build up to something. I don't have any, timetable when I'm releasing something, but I just recommending if you haven't and you're interested in my music, I have a Bandcamp, and to follow me on Bandcamp, which you can do, because then you'll get email updates if there's any important, like there's like a follow button on the Bandcamp page. So yeah, if you're interested in my music, if you could do that, because it's probably a better way to see stuff than social media at this point.
Give me that URL.
It is ELLAGURO.bandcamp.com.
That'll be in the show notes.
And there's a follow button on Bandcamp on each page, like that you can just click on to do that. Because it's a better way to get information about stuff than trying to deal with social media right now.
That's everybody, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, hey, while you're doing that, I think some other cool things you could do are wishlist Demon School on Steam. You could buy Hyper Gunsport. You could listen to the Video Game History Hour. You could rate and review our show wherever and however you can. You can support us on patreon.com/insertcredit, where you could become a patron to submit your own questions, listen to monthly bonus episodes, and more stuff. If you'd like to sponsor our show with an advertisement or personal message, it's easy and affordable. Just contact us at show@insertcredit.com. This episode is edited by Esper Quinn, with original music by Kurt Feldman. I'm Alex Jaffe.
I'm Frank Cifaldi.
I'm Brandon Sheffield.
And I'm Liz Ryerson.
And never turn your back on black magic.
Excellent.
Terrific.
Very good.